Evan Closky, 10 Tampa Bay. Bro, I appreciate you moving the time back. I just went on like a 25. I went on a 27-minute heater right there, buddy.
Yeah, throwing out straight fastball. I love it.
I mean, listen, I just when you look at this whole situation, man, and I know, and I was giving you and Aaron Parsegian a lot of love. You guys have been all over this from day one. Um, I just I don't. And you listen to the interview yesterday with Matt Silverman. Let's start with the statement first. What was your
Mhm.
initial response when you saw that come out at 11:38 yesterday about the Rays nixing the stadium deal?
It was just kind of like, well, we knew this was coming. I didn't
Right.
necessarily know it was coming yesterday. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. It actually made, the more I sat on it, the more it made sense to actually announce it this week, because by the time we can flush this story out, it will be opening day. And the hope is we can all talk about the baseball versus, showing up to the ballpark on the 29th, asking a million questions about the March 31st deadline. But yeah, I mean, just par for the course stuff. Just like, I thought you were gonna at least give it another couple of weeks, but okay, all right. Well, we've reached the conclusion of this mess, which for a while now we knew was coming.
I think it's so crazy too, Ev, that one of the guys that has been such a main proponent of this deal, who staked the legacy of his mayoral tenure, is Ken Welch. And yesterday he's like, yeah, that bridge has been burned. Like, man, and you did such a great job yesterday, Evan, with the entire thing. I just, this as well as I do. This isn't business. This is just like personal, like, you know what I mean? If me and you have been buds ever since you've been here in the Tampa Bay area, people see us talk, people see us chop up, people see us have such a great time, right? But if one
Mhm.
day we and you like walk by each other and they're like, Jay, what's up with Evan? I'm like, our bridges have burned. I'm never talking to that guy again. He's a douchebag. People are gonna be like, whoa, whoa, what the
Yeah.
hell, man? Right? So in a situation like this where it's so much more like transparent and on the forefront, I feel for Ken Welch, man. This guy put his ass on the line for this deal, and now he's stuck just holding the rope. Like, I want to do a deal here, but we're not sure as hell not going to do it with them.
Yeah, and I really liked Ken Welch's press conference with the media, and the number one thing that stuck out to me from that was he never has gotten, not he says, not even on a napkin, what the cost overruns were and
Right.
why that was so detrimental to the project. And then he also said with his team, he likes to tell them, hey, we like to solve for X, right? What he says, I don't know what X is. They
Right.
don't. He's like, I've called them up many a time, said, what are we trying to bridge here? What's the gap? What are we trying to figure out? And they have not provided any clarity on that. It has been, he just has been stopped every which way of trying to find a solution. And why would that be? Because the Rays did not want him to find a solution. They
Right.
didn't want the project. That's why the whole thing from the 49 day delay was always a farce of complaining about that, because I understand that it cascaded a bunch of events of maybe their planning. But when Matt Silverman goes on air and says, we were playing with the thinnest of margins, this was not a home run project for us, like, what are we doing, guys? Like, how, and then you're going to pin it on Pinellas County because they weren't a part of your thin margins. And Mayor Welch, like, he stopped himself because he was getting riled up, and he was like, I have a big problem with that 49-day delay argument. And he's like, he pauses and he says, all I'll say is, if we knew that was a drop dead date for the deal, we would have been there. We would have made sure those
Right.
votes went through. And that's why he's so upset, because
The
just
Rays
like the
weren't even there.
fans.
The Rays weren't even
No,
there.
they
That's the
weren't.
thing.
And that's what I'm saying. From the very get-go, it was and you got to remember also in that meeting, Brian Scott was saying that he got a call before the delay saying we were trying to, the Rays were trying to figure out how to keep the deal together, which I think was part of why they delayed it, was because also they didn't know where they were and why were they going to give money to an entity on top of where they were to play. But I think they were trying to cover, the Rays' asses of just being like, they don't necessarily know where the money is right now, so that's a little bit confusing. It's just sad. It's a sad situation. I know Matt Silverman went on there being like, "Oh, we're going to be creative with We're finding a new stadium project. We're going to rebuild the trust. It's over, bro. It's over. It just, you know, I said it last night. We've been through the sale, we've been through Ybor City, and we've been through the Montreal plan. And never had the deal been so far down the road that it was pretty much if you hit the go button, shovels are in the ground, we're all smiling, taking pictures. And to say, like, oh, we're going to get to the finish line. No, 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 no. Am I taking crazy pills? You were at the finish line. We
Yeah.
were there. We were all there. We were all at the press conferences. We were all there. And you told us we were there. And you said, and then Stu tells us, tell the naysayers, try to convert them. Like, this is happening. And then you do this. It's just like enough. It's like it just goes to show you that it's so funny for a team that is so damn good on the field that I have so many people in my mentions being like, this is the worst ownership group ever. And it's like, well, I find that funny because they're actually really good on the team. But that's the point, is that they've lost so much trust and they have no sort of equity in the community that people don't see that anymore. They don't see what they do on the baseball field. They're just so sick and tired of the lying, the deceit, the runarounds. And from my perspective, me too, for the community, because I'm the one disseminating information from them
Right.
to the community. And after a while, I feel like I'm being the idiot telling the community stuff and they're getting fooled and I'm being part of that messaging. So I don't like being part of that. And I feel like I, along with everybody else in the media, has been used in this process. So I'm not going to do his dirty work, and I'm just going to call it like it is because now I have enough experience here with dealing with them, and on a personal level, like they are totally good people. Like it's just on a business side of thing, it's just they just don't they just lack like emotional intelligence. They just they just do. They are intelligent, but they lack emotional intelligence, and that's been their struggle since day one.
The trust is gone. Like that's it, man. Like that, I'm with
Mhm.
you. Like there's no coming back from that, right? I just I just
No.
Tupac running in my back. I don't wish death upon nobody because there's no coming back from that, from that, from that, from that. Like that's what I think about when I'm going through this entire thing. I'm reading the statement yesterday, and I just go, I don't know how a team that is so good at putting together a roster on the field with limited resources can be so tone deaf with their interactions with the community. And then I listened to Matt yesterday and I'm taking notes and I'm just like, I'm looking at this type of thing and it's like, I think Stu gets a bad rap. Stu's about the community and putting smiles on kids' faces. And I feel like, I feel like it's like a WWE thing. Like I really do. I feel like Stu's the heel and they're trying to give out these things to pretend that they're the good guy, but they're not. And I feel so terrible for Matt. I don't feel. I mean, it is what it is. Like it's his job. But
Yeah,
he's
it's
the
it
person
sucks that
answering
Stu
these
puts him in that
questions.
position,
Like
but
what?
yeah, he signs up for it.
Evan, you listened to the thing. Like, why wasn't Stu the guy on the air with T. Kraz yesterday? Like, that's not right, dude. You're the person that's making this decision. Ultimately, you're the person signing the checks. Like, why does everybody have to be the pawns in this situation? Whether it's Matt and Brian on the Rays side or people in the media, like on our side.
Theoretically, you're right. Like he should be the one on the phone. But here's the thing. Every time Stu steps up to the plate with a microphone in front of him, he usually says something dumb. I
Mm.
think they're afraid of what he's going to say. And I think he's afraid of what he's going to say because he is also an emotional guy and he will say things off the cuff that don't play well and he'll have to backtrack later on. That's why he puts Matt and Brian, you know, out there to kind of do a little bit of his dirty work because they're a little bit more and it's still BS, but they at least know how to navigate some of
Yeah,
those
they
waters a
can
little bit
massage it.
more.
Yeah.
Exactly, versus what Stu does, and that's just the reality is that Stu has been at this long enough, and we have run through many a quotes from Stu about what the hell was that. Um, but even yesterday, even with Matt, I just in that interview at one point. He's talking about the calculus of the deal not adding up. And then at another point of the interview, he's saying, well, financials aren't the issue. It's like, in one interview, you're telling me financials are and are not the issue. Like months ago, you're telling me the area is on an upward trajectory. Stu's out here saying, I wish I would have done this deal 5, 10, 15 years ago. And then after 7 months, you're saying, oh, well, a couple of hurricanes came through and things have changed. And then you don't want to say like, oh, it's not the hurricane's fault. Like you don't, you're the ones that claim here to stay. And then at the first sign of turmoil, hurricanes hit, our community needs someone to rally behind. You say, Deuce, sorry. The calculus has changed, and I'm sorry that I got to bring up the calculus, but the heart couldn't win. But money isn't an issue. It's like it's all just like there's no clear messaging from them, and they have dropped the PR ball from the beginning of this. And they dropped the PR ball when they had a 49-day delay there to really run with it, and they kind of screwed themselves up, and they cornered themselves, and I just always like when all this stuff was happening, I just think about like the Saints. The New Orleans Saints were supposed to leave New Orleans. That was the original intention before Hurricane Katrina,
Mhm.
right? There were rumors that they were going to go to San Antonio. And Hurricane Katrina happened. The city rallied around the Saints, and the Saints fan base has never been the same since that Steve Gleason block
Right.
when the community came together and had that moment, and it just propelled that fan base to something that was so integral a part of their homes. And the Rays could have sniffed a part of that, and they ran away from it. And that's just like, you either are there to hug the community or you're there to run away. And it just for them, I just don't know if they really are here for the long haul to say, you know what, I want to be part of the rebuild and the regrowth and all this stuff. It's always been a bottom line. What is this deal going to do for me? How's the money going to work? And all the crap about the community, it just falls on deaf ears. It just does.
Rays could have been a galvanizing. They could have used this situation as a galvanizing moment. Instead, they've alienated the fan base with the
Yep.
way that they've handled everything. And I keep looking at this situation and I keep listening to what Matt had to say. And it's a 24-minute interview with Tom. And I'm just like, man, so many times in that, it was just back and forth and speaking out of both sides of his mouth. And it's just like he's covering his ass the entire time there because at the end of the day, he is the one that has to answer for why this didn't happen, even though he's not the guy signing the checks. And I want to go back to the 49-day delay. Maybe this deal gets done if the Rays go, listen, we got screwed. The hurricane really did screw us. It was $79 million. Here it is, black and white. Here's, this is where we anticipate the numbers are going to go up. This is where the cost of labor is going up. This is where the cost of materials is going up. This is what we're dealing with when it comes to insurance. Like at least these four things. There's $79, $85 million. This is what we need to do. We can't get this deal done if we're on the hook for 85, even though we were going to be on the hook for overruns and things like that. Can we please amend the deal so that we can maybe slice this pie up in 3 ways? Maybe we'll take the largest portion of it, but can we do something to make this work? That never happened. It was like, it's going to cost over $100 million. And then everybody was
At
like,
least, yeah.
really? Okay, show your work. Just like high school math class, show your work. And then it was like, yeah, about that. How do you say something like that? You're operating in faith where you're getting over $700 million from local officials. And then something like this happens. And all they want to see is proof. And you don't want to bring the paper to the table? Like,
Hmm.
Ev, I don't quite understand how at the end of the day, the Rays can look at themselves and not realize that they were not operating in good faith.
It's because the way that they think and the way that they act are not the same.
Mhm.
And the portion is, I always think back to what Richie Floyd said at the city council meeting during the vote for the stadium. He was against the stadium,
Right.
and in being against the stadium, he said, I am very fearful that while they have agreed to cost overruns, I am afraid that in the middle of this project, they're going to come back to the city and they're going to say, well, we can't handle the cost overruns. And then you're put in a position to say, well, are we going to have a half-built stadium here
Right.
and stop the production and risk what David Tepper did in Carolina, where he just completely strips it down and packs his stuff up and goes? It's like typically you get cornered, and that's that. And when Matt goes out there and says we were playing with the thinnest of margins, this was never a home run deal for us. I think back to that quote a lot, being like, man, like what would have happened if a hurricane happened in year two of this construction build?
Right.
The Rays would have done the same thing, and they would
Hmm.
have left the city on it, and they would have said, "The city, you owe us this," and that's my whole point. So I mean, in a roundabout way, and sort of Mayor Welch kind of alluded to this. It's nice to realize this stuff while you're engaged versus
Right.
being married, and it's nice, maybe in the big picture, that this happened at this time before the deal, because if we got further down the road, all the leverage would have been on the Rays, and they might have taken the community for more money because they would have been stuck, and there wouldn't have been many other options. So it's just sad that it's come to that kind of stuff. It's sad that you have to think of some surreptitious means. And Welch even added, like, uh, he kind of mentioned at the end of his press conference, like they're asking for $300 million, and it's like, what for what? And you think about it, like $300 million, that means you're close to a billion in public funds. That's I mean, that's nuts, and that's the stuff that Orlando is touting right now. And it's great when I see press conferences like or press releases from today from the Orlando Dreamers saying they got like $1 billion, so on and so forth. I still haven't heard anything from government officials that
Yeah.
say they're going to put forth that money. I've heard it from the Dreamers side of things.
Yeah.
I want to see the officials put their name to it. Hey, taxpayers, I'm gonna $1 billion out of the TDT. That's going to you. And then I want those same officials to go to UCF, to go to Orlando City, to go to the Magic and say, yeah, we're gonna need to pause some projects that you have asked because we're putting it into a baseball stadium. Like, there's a lot of stuff
That's
that
not
goes on
happening.
there.
Yeah, that's not happening. Like people
Yeah.
keep saying Orlando, it's not happening. There's just no way you are not gonna be an organization. You're not gonna be a MLB league and you're going to leave the Tampa area. It's just not going to happen because there's too much going on here and there's too much. Now there's a lot of work. Now there's a lot of eyeballs. Now people are going to look at Rob Manfred. All right. Like, Rob, we got to get this thing done.
Hmm.
And, I listen to what Matt is saying and you kind of, all right, we could have our discussions about the posts, our discussions about him kind of like readjusting everything and trying to put a spin on it because that's what was a lot of that interview yesterday was the spin zone. But now there's this sentiment from Matt Silverman and the Rays of, well, now we're going to get another job done. We're going to find another way to get this done. Evan, there's no way that this can happen. Like now, all the people that were against you, they'll never be with you. The people that were begrudgingly with you are not going to be with you. You have zero public support. This is like the boy who cried wolf. Like nobody is going to be supportive. And I hate to say it, but this is whether you want to blame him or not. Like people aren't going to believe what Matt Silverman and Brian Auld are saying anymore because they're the mouthpiece for Stu Sternberg. So like I just don't see how the Rays will ever achieve a new stadium with Stu Sternberg and those two guys there. Like it can't happen. They can say it till they're blue in the face, Evan, but nobody's going to back these guys. Nobody's going to believe it. They could get even farther down the road, but I don't think they can ever. They can't. I'll take that back. They can't get further down
Yeah.
the road because they don't have the approval. They had everybody, like you said, they were so close to pushing that go button to put the shovels in the ground. It's no way it's going to happen with this Rays leadership group.
Nope. I think the best case scenario for them would be to slink back into like a minority ownership and allow somebody else to take the reins. They sell a large portion of it.
Kind
They
of like
make
what
out a
the
good.
kind of like what the Glazers did with Man United.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the so ultimately that's like how I can see them staying in it but not actually being the front of it anymore because they just pass it on to somebody else who will then deal with the negotiations, who has more faith, who maybe has local roots and can gain a little bit of the trust back. So I think that's maybe the best case scenario for them. But I'm with you. I mean, Mary Jane Castor has spoken with the Rays before. She knows exactly what's coming down the chute, and she's no dummy. So she, Tampa, Hillsborough, they were never offering that much public funds in the first place. They're not going to do it now. They're
No.
just not. And all of a sudden, I want to see where the billions of dollars comes from Stu to build a stadium when 600 $700 million of public funding wasn't good enough for you. And then you have the spin zone of, oh, we're just looking out for Major League Baseball, and we don't want them to, essentially saying, trying to pin it on the owners, like, hey, owners, you really want like us to build this stadium when we're going to continue taking revenue sharing from you? That doesn't seem good for business, does it? And it's like, honestly, I don't think the owners really give a crap.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
don't think. I think they want the stadium, and that if they need to give you a little slush money for the revenue sharing, they'll do it because they're about to get this expansion money, and it's chump change to them. So they keep trying to build out this sort of notion that, like,
They
look, we're
take
doing
this
it for the
moral, yeah, they
the
take this
betterment of
moral
the
high
game.
ground, right? Oh,
It's like
altruistic type of
it's
feeling.
like baloney. It's like
Yeah.
nothing changed in St. Pete's projections in 7 months. It did not. What changed is probably your pockets, your money, what you were able to stomach. But whatever the projections were in St. Pete, whatever you were building over there, I'm sorry, 7 months does not change the projections. Pre, post hurricane, I do not care. Whatever you thought before the stadium was getting built is where the projections are now. It cannot be like that. So I just don't buy it. And that's my point, is that they're out of the cliche sort of sound bites that we all lean into. We've heard them before. We've been down this road. I know the next tier of actions. It's like, you're done. You're done. You can keep, you can grasp onto this team as hard as you try and try to, keep it, because owning a baseball team has so much gravitas to it. But if you can't do anything with it, you're stuck. So at this point, I'm sure Major League Baseball will try to do everything in their power to help Stu leverage whatever he's got out there as far as investment groups to get the best price for Stu, because that would be good for baseball owners to get whatever that price is as high as possible to then help the next owner who sells. But beyond that, I'm just going to take it all as word vomit, and I still do expect him to sell because there's really no logical other option for him to go. And I don't foresee another government official falling in love with this guy either.
Not happening.
I just don't. You can't do the things that you've done and then act like, oh, we can overcome it. You just can't. You can't. Not this deal. Maybe some other ones, but you had a deal in place and you backed out. You did, not the city, not the county. You did. You have to own that, and you have to go to your community members and say, yeah, I decided not to build here in St. Pete. I decided not to do a development project that was going to, help the city for 30 some odd years, a $6.5 billion project. Like, yeah, I took that one and I forced the mayor to say, yeah, instead of a home run, this is going to be a single or a double. Like, that's on you, Stu. You have to own that.
Isn't it crazy too how Stu was like, yeah, he put that in the original deal, and I think this didn't get mentioned yesterday, but I think this is one of the big things. They had it in that original deal that Stu could own that land around the stadium, even if he sold the team. And I truly believe that's part of the reason why he held on to this deal as long as he did, because he got the city and the county to agree to that. And I think there was a lot of people that were hesitant, like, why did we put that in there? Because that shouldn't be, in my mind, a deal breaker, right? You should just be like, yeah, I don't know so much about that, Stu. That doesn't really make much sense. So he was still going to have, skin in the game, even if he wasn't going to be here. So he was going to be able to have his cake and eat it too. And I think it just got down to the point where it's like he's holding on, and you're holding on to a losing hand, right? Like, you just muck your cards, Stu, right? And that's what they did. And now, like, they win. I don't even know if they win all in, bro. They're sitting there, and I know my pal Zach used to be chip in a chair. Yeah, you got a chip in a chair, bro, but you can't even afford the ante. Forget the small blind. It's so sad, man. It sucks that we're here. But on the other side, Ev, I said this, and I want to get your opinion before I let you go. I feel like in a weird way, this could be positive because now we can start kind of the reconciliation of like what the next step is, because it's like you and I both agree it's over with these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hopeful that something will work out in the Tampa Bay area. It seems like there is significant steam on the Tampa side of things, but also there is a project that has been fully fleshed out on the St. Pete side of things. So theoretically, a new owner could come in, and it would not take as long to figure out what the financials, what the build would look like in St. Pete versus maybe what you have to do in Tampa.
Right.
Either which way. You would hope that a new owner can come in, that they're able to galvanize a group, a city that is ready to really embrace this team the right way, which we have seen, right? I mean, I think the Glazers have done a great job with the Buccaneers. They have a great fan base here. I think that we know that the Lightning do. That's always my thing too, is when people talk about this Rays fan base. You go back to what the Lightning were pre-Vinnick, you would have said the same thing, that the city
Right.
was never a hockey city, whatever. They had one cup win, and, they hung around the middle to the below average amount of attendance. And now look at them. And what happened? It was that they had an owner who saw a vision to bring the community together, to build around around the arena, and it gravitated people towards the product. And those people exist here. They will show up. I'm not saying it's going to be like sold out every night, but I'm not saying that they're going to be a bottom 5 attendance squad either. They
Yeah, give
just
them a
need
reason. Give them a
you
reason.
just need an owner to prove that you give a crap about them, and that you're going to go into their communities, and you're going to do the things and get in front of people. And there is a little bit of a word of mouth thing that happens. So I think that hopefully down the road we're talking about how, in the big picture, this was the way that it was supposed to go, and that it worked out for the best. Right now, obviously, it's murky, it's unfortunate, it's disappointing, but the hope is that the Rays are put in the right hands, and that they can be the franchise that this city, be loved by the fans the way that the fans want to love their owners and a team, and repair this relationship and this trust between community and team. Because the people who I feel for are the players, because the
Yeah.
players they work their butts off. They don't want to get traded, but they end up getting traded, and they put out a hell of a product there for all of us. And the support isn't what it should be, and I don't think that's their fault. I mean, I know it's not their fault. It's a byproduct of some of the stuff that's out of their control. But I always say, when people go like, I don't want to put a nickel into the team and whatnot, I'm always a big proponent of supporting the players, supporting Kevin
Right.
Cash, Eric Neander. This isn't their world.
Yeah,
That's
this
above
isn't
their
on
pay
them.
grade. Support those guys, and understand that you can do both. You can support them, and you can also complain about, Stu and company, and how they're handling business. And you got to remember just the fine line between both of those things.
You got that right. Evan Closky, 10 Tampa Bay, Closky, WTSP. Follow him on all social media platforms. It's been fun, my friend. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend. Talk soon.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate it. Anytime, Jake.
Thanks, pal.